What happened was just so shocking to me that looking at it in hindsight, I'm not sure how I could have prevented it. So I had a plan. I thought long and hard about this. I thought about it for a full entire year plus, and when I finally pulled the trigger, I had it down to how I needed to leave the job feeling super secure and good about it. And when I left the job, I didn't expect this to happen. So to give you some background, I am the person who has always had a job ever since I had graduated from college. And so I've always been working, and I've always had some sort of stable income that I could count on and rely on and calculate. And so it was a big jump for me to leave a corporate job with insurance and benefits. So it was a huge leap. And I did a lot of secure measures that I would take to kind of make sure I was doing it in a very strategic and secure way that felt good to me. And I am a single mom, and so there are obviously a ton more responsibilities financially and just logistically for myself that I considered. And so in doing this, it was something that was very thought out, planned out to the best of my ability at the time. I had this plan and it worked out perfectly. So when I had left my job, it was in the best way. I was feeling so good, so high, had this plan, felt financially secure, and then when it actually happened, one weekend I was like, pretty good, you know, trying to enjoy my little like time away, and then bam, it hit me. I felt lost. I was so lost. I no longer had this identity of this corporate employee that I've known to be. I felt just so lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know what I was about. I didn't know how to explain to people what I was doing. I didn't know how to discuss it and talk about it, which made me feel worse. And so I felt like I just didn't know who I was anymore. I didn't have anything to get tied to that. And so I wanted to just talk about this because it was only after the fact that I saw and recognized that this was something that I was going through. But at the time, I didn't know and I didn't expect this because I planned my execution of departing and doing this transition so perfectly, in which I still think was a great seamless transition, except I didn't anticipate all these emotional feelings that I had ended up getting. All these fears and doubts came right back in. So I had all of these obviously before making the jump, but afterwards I still had these same feelings creep back in. So I not only felt lost and I didn't know who I was anymore without this title of, you know, some career or some like job to validate who I was and define who I was. I also just didn't know these feelings that I had because it crept up on me and I wasn't expecting it, but I felt so stressed and fearful of all these doubts that came right back in that I was feeling before. So I questioned myself, did I make that right decision? Was this the right thing to do? How is my kid gonna eat and like, you know, how am I gonna take care of him? So there were all these things that ran through my head and I didn't realize how stressed it got me and how much of an impact it had on me emotionally. So I had done this video on the 5 stages of grief. I will link it somewhere down below. In that video, I basically talk about the 5 stages of grief. And in that 5 stages of grief, basically what that runs through is the 5 stages that typically you feel in some sort of loss. And in this case, I felt lost because I lost a piece of myself, a big defining piece of myself. Because, you know, when you meet someone, they're like, hey, how are you? My name is so-and-so, blah, blah, blah. Oh, so what do you do? There were a lot of feelings that were not things that were addressed, and I didn't know because I had researched a ton, not only just online and with, you know, people who have experienced and gone through this. We never talked about the emotional side. I never heard about these feelings because most people are just like, you know, how do you go about doing it? How do you make that decision? How do you financially go and jump into this? And these are all things that were super helpful to do, like 90% of what I needed to do but the last 10% was feeling these emotions, working through them in a positive way to recover from it faster. And this is the exact reason why I did those 5 stages of grief videos. Something where it kind of tells you at what stage you're in. And actually thinking about it, they actually gave us a little pamphlet when one of the companies I was working for was going through a transition for a merger, a possible merger that was happening. And at the time, we didn't know what was happening because we were in like a state of flux. So of course they wanted to prepare the employees. And what they did was they showed this transition of kind of like the 5 stages of grief, right? And you kind of go through these steps. And that helps us because it kind of gives you a guideline as to how your feelings are gonna go. And it's totally normal. And that's the thing that we need to figure out, is that it's a normal feeling. And this is a normal part of that process. It's getting from this step to this step. And that's kind of where nobody talked about. This little like middle piece that, you know, kind of is important because it made my mood. Honestly, for months, I didn't know what was going on inside of me because as much as I was going through a regular day, I felt this sense of uneasiness and I felt this sense of stress that came out of nowhere. I try to control it and I control people around me or whatever I can control, whatever I can grasp onto some sort of a hold to make my life in some stable, secure type way. That's all I could hold on to get myself through that feeling. And I didn't realize this, but I was doing this across the board. Not only was I just doing it to myself by over planning and trying to like organize everything and do it all and stressing myself out about it. It was across the board with multiple people, and sorry for them, but I actually had to go through it because I didn't realize what I was feeling at the time, and it had nothing to do with them, right? It was all within me. These feelings are very valid, and the 5 stages of grief I definitely even felt through this process without even knowing it. So the first one is going to be in denial, and denial is definitely something I felt because I was like, is this really happening? For the first 2 to 3 weeks after I left my job, I felt like it was a surreal moment because I just felt like, am I supposed to go to work tomorrow? Is this happening? Am I really without a job? It was a huge disbelief for me. And so it's kind of in that denial phase of like, did I actually really just leave my job and I have choices that I can make and I am creating this life, and is this actually happening? So that was something that I went through. All right, so the second stage was anger. And so I don't think I was necessarily angry, but this is where kind of like the stress and fear came in, and I was just like, did I make the right decision? Why did I do this? How am I going to survive? Can I really do this? Everything kind of like came in. So that was kind of my version of anger. I was kind of just mad at myself. And so that was my version of dealing with that anger phase. After anger was bargaining. So I thought through myself, I was like, okay, so now that I put myself in this situation, can I go back and get my job? I was looking for any way to escape my situation that I chose and created for myself, planned. And so I felt this huge sense of like, oh my gosh, did I make the right thing? And I was trying to get back to how it was because that's what I was used to and comfortable with. And the fourth stage is depression. And so this is the piece that I'm talking about that was very emotional for me because I got into a state where I was just feeling so lost. There was this baseline of that depressed feeling of just feeling really emotional and unsure about me, who I was, what I was about, what I was good at. A lot of the things that I just didn't know just made me feel bad about myself because I felt just lost. Very, very lost is how I can say it. I didn't know who I was anymore. I had so many transitions in my life. I had so many things that were going on that I needed to do and work on and fix. And there were just a lot of responsibilities that I had. I didn't expect it in this kind of manner, how it came on so strong and subtle. So it was strong in a sense where my feelings were very set. Like I didn't work those issues out for myself. So therefore it kept festering within me, but it also was very subtle because I was still going around my day like everything was fine, and I try to keep positive because that's just my personality. And so I was going through everything like, oh, everything's great, and then all of a sudden like bam, like I didn't feel good about things, and I started stressing out, and then, you know, everyone around me kind of had to take the wrath of it. There were these feelings, and it's something that I wish somebody would have told me about, because I think the other stages I could kind of expect a little bit, but this feeling of like depression was something that I didn't expect, and I didn't expect to last so long. Still things that you kind of like work through, but you know, now it's like easier because it comes and goes, and I am aware of what had happened now versus before where I didn't know. I think the transition itself was really good to have a plan, and I will do another video that will go into this plan, but that is the first thing. And then after actually leaving the job, that little period after, there is a sense of these emotional kind of ups and downs that you go through, and how long or short that goes for, that will be based on how much you kind of have to work through yourself internally for yourself. But once you kind of figure that out and you know that that's part of the process, I feel like that is like 50% of the work, to just be aware of it and to know that that's something to expect. As you feel it, you're gonna want to kind of sit in that, realize what it is you're feeling, figure out why you're kind of feeling that, what that thought is, and what it is that you can do to fix that. And then on top of that, think about why you did this, why it is that you made this choice, and then go back to that and then figure out what your answer is to that person who is coming from a place of what you want to be. So your future self, basically. The future you that you want to be, and why you decided to do what you did, which is to leave your job or transition or do whatever. That is what you want to take with you. It's the future self, not the one that is stuck in this temporary feeling and situation that you are in right now. And so this is something that I didn't just, you know, magically come across. And I think even if my friends had told me something to it, they never told me the degree of what that is, and everyone feels it differently. So you don't know how exactly it's gonna hit you, because I was on like cloud 9 when I had left my job, and everything worked so great and in its perfect way. And then all of a sudden I had like all these negative feelings, which I didn't expect, because everything was planned so perfectly and executed so perfectly. So I didn't know, and I wanted to share this because this is something that's really important, because when you're emotionally feeling something, it stops you from doing a lot of other things, because it all starts with your mindset and your state of being. And if you can get past this quicker, it'll get you to that next point quicker, which is probably why you want to transition or leave your job and have this change in your life. So I'm hoping that this will help shorten that process for you by knowing this, and I hope that this will help you get to that point that you want to be. I think that this is something where it's just a hurdle. It's not something that's going to last forever. So just know that you have ways to work through it, and one of the ways is doing the 5 stages of grief, to recognize which stage you're in to help you kind of get through that hump. And that temporary feeling, just remember it's temporary, and you can definitely get out of it. I just wanted to share something with you guys for anybody who is thinking about doing this transition. Yes, you can do it. Yes, you have this possibility of whatever you're seeing to be true in some way, shape, or form. It may not turn out exactly like you're asking for it to be, but it will lead you to where it is that you want to be. And the next thing is going to be that you need to have some sort of a plan that will make you feel secure. So not everybody's plan is going to look the same, but if you wanted to plan out something, that is something that is going to work for you for what you need, because not everyone needs the same things. But I will say, on a baseline, everybody needs some financial stability. Make sure that financially you have this number that you can see, because that's something that's tangible. It's something that's you could calculate out, something you can plan out, and so that'll help you gauge into what it is that you're trying to do and how long it'll take you and how much you can actually spend. If everything that you do is to get your finances on track, and then everything else will just be based on what you're gonna put into it and how you respond to things as it happens, because that's All of those things you can't really plan for, but financially, you know you're gonna need to pay for X number of things and you'll need X amount of dollars, and for how long you plan to be doing this for. I think those are things that can all be timed out. I'm going to go ahead and leave a download link into my website that has a template for you guys to budget when you guys are looking to leave your job. And this will give you a good financial roadmap as to where you are. And this is exactly what I used. So I'm gonna send this for you guys. So if anybody is looking to do the same thing, this is how I created it. All right, guys, I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.